We're about to find out whether or not you can actually make any substantial amounts of money with a 3D printing business, so let's give it a try. Here's the thing, this video will be focusing on ways that you can make money with 3D printing, especially if you're not necessarily the creative type. And so I'm not going to ask you to come up with any unique models, any unique ideas, and instead this is just going to be a step-by-step guide, okay? Now, if you're looking at purchasing a 3D printer, if you're considering purchasing one of these devices, you're basically looking at making an investment worth up to $300. And that is just for an entry-level device. If you want to step up your game and get a high performance one, you're looking at spending all the way up to $1,000. And if you really want to take it to the next level and grab yourself a professional 3D printer, that's gonna cost you an extra $5,000. And so that is a substantial investment. But here's the thing, even if you do not have a 3D printer yourself, or you don't have a lot of experience when it comes to this field of activity, you are brand new to 3D printing as a whole, I'm gonna break down a few different interesting earning opportunities that the business model provides. So let's see what this is all about. Well guys, believe it or not, you can actually get compensated for selling 3D models. And so these are not going to be the physical products that have already been 3D printed, but instead you will just sell the design, the idea, the concept behind it. That way somebody who has a 3D printer can just purchase your idea and turn it into reality using their device. And one of the best places to start doing that would be mrmoney.com. This is literally a marketplace that allows people to sell their ideas. But in order to get something like this done, you first need to have the skill, and you also need to use some software in order to create that. Now, luckily for us, there is no shortage of software that will allow you to create those 3D models. And we can start using Blender, we can start using Rhino, or Autodesk. So you got a lot of different options, but you still need the skill. So if you don't already know how to create these models, if you don't have any experience when it comes to that, how can you start learning? Well guys, luckily for us, there's a lot of educational content on YouTube, and most of it is absolutely free of charge. As a matter of fact, I highly recommend that you watch this particular channel because it's got a lot of value. But there's so much more to it than that. There are literally hundreds of different channels that are all packed with value, which will guide you through the process. And that way you can start stacking up skills. You can learn how to create these 3D models yourself using some piece of software. And as we're about to discover in the next few minutes, there are a lot of use cases for that. This is a skill that's in very high demand for a lot of different fields of activity. Again guys, we are not just talking about artists here. And as a matter of fact, we're gonna stay away from that. We're just going to ignore the artistic part of the business, and instead, we're going to be focusing on more practical ways of implementing 3D printing. And let me give you a clear example of what I'm talking about. RC cars. Now, I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with these remotely controlled devices, right? Basically, every now and again, a certain part of an RC car will undoubtedly break. It will stop working. And replacing one of these very small parts is really difficult. There is a very short supply when it comes to those specific parts. And so what you can do is actually recreate those parts digitally as a 3D printed model. And there are so many different use cases for that. That way, whenever somebody needs a certain part in order to replace in their RC car, they can just head over to your marketplace and purchase the item from you instead of purchasing it from the original seller. The best part about it is that you can just create the design once, and then you're only going to print it whenever there is an actual demand for it. So you're not gonna print these parts ahead of time. And it goes beyond RC cars actually. You can even 3D print parts for drones. Now, you might think that this is a very narrow niche, and I'll give you that, but still, there are so many different earning opportunities here. Designing one single part can actually make you a few $100s easily. Whenever something breaks, people will reach out to you. And if you're able to provide them with a solution, that's how you're making money. Now, if you take a step back and if you think about what we are doing here, we're basically just identifying a problem in the market. Basically, these RC cars and these drones are gonna break at some point. So sooner or later, some parts will break. And if we can solve that problem, if we can replace those parts with our 3D printing models, that is how we can make money. And we can take this one step further. Basically, that's all you have to do when it comes to 3D printing. Instead of having to come up with some revolutionary idea, instead of having to be an artist and create some really unique designs, what you can do is just identify a flaw, identify a problem, and come up with a solution in a 3D printed format. And here is the perfect example of that. Now guys, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with this game right here. It basically allows you to control a car using your Xbox controller, but most of the times that is not that straightforward to do. It doesn't come naturally. It feels a little bit forced, if you will. And so what this user right here was able to do is absolutely genius. They simply created a quick fix for that problem. They identified the problem, which is that controlling the cars in those video games can be quite difficult, and they also came up with the solution in a 3D printing format, which is this device right here that you can just place onto your Xbox controller, and it works great. So instead of using the joysticks, now you have a steering wheel. Now guys, do not get me wrong, coming up with such an idea is pretty difficult. Not everybody will do that, but you don't necessarily have to be a genius. But the crazy part is they've generated over 3,100 sales so far. They've also listed their item for 12 euros. So let's just do the math here. That's over $40,000 in revenue with this single item. Now, some of you might already be familiar with this story because we've covered it a few times on the channel, but it is absolutely crazy if you think about it. Basically, this seller right here is this exact content creator that I showed you a few minutes ago. And what they did was pretty clever. Basically, they found somebody who created this model, so they didn't create it themselves. They found somebody else who did, and then they just made a proposal. They made an offer. Here's the thing. I want to sell your idea because I think it's really clever. And so what I can do is give you a certain percentage of the royalties. In other words, they give them a certain percentage of the future sales. That way they didn't have to pay them anything up front, and instead they just give them a commission off of the money they would generate in the future. And it actually worked. As you can see, this was a bestseller, and it's got great reviews. People are absolutely satisfied with it. That just goes to show that 3D printing is not necessarily just for artists. Now, of course, if you're able to create very unique and interesting 3D models, such as all sorts of avatars and cosplay items, you can make some money off of those as well. But in case you're not the creative type, which might be a struggle for some of you, you can still go for these more technical items that simply require you to identify a problem and then come up with a quick solution. And guys, let's not forget about the educational part of the process. Here's the thing. Let's just say that you have mastered this skill. You have watched all of the content that was available for free, and then perhaps you also purchased some courses in order to double down on that and improve your skills even further. Now, you've also generated a few sales here and there, so you've got some revenue off of 3D printing. Perhaps you also have a 3D printer of your own at this point, so you want to take it to the next level. And basically, you want to give back. So, you've already gone through the journey, and at this point, you want to give back to your community. You want to give back to other people and help them in their journey as well, which is basically what these content creators on YouTube are doing. They're just giving back, and they're offering a lot of value. And that is precisely what you can do at some point along the way. Now, you cannot do this unless you've actually implemented 3D printing and you've actually got some previous experience that you can share on your channel. But once you get to that point, there is a lot of money to be made off of YouTube and other social media platforms by simply increasing your social media exposure. Apart from getting paid through Google AdSense and things of that sort, what you can do is use your YouTube channel or your social media page as a source of traffic. And that way, you can actually promote your 3D models using all of that traffic that you're generating from your YouTube channel, so you can redirect those people straight over to your marketplace, your online store. Or you can take it one step further and create educational content, such as a course that people will have to pay a membership in order to attend. There are multiple ways you can monetize this traffic. But before we can get there, we need to take things one step at a time. And so again, the easiest way you can go about it is selling the items digitally. That way, by heading over to minifactory.com or similar websites, you do not even need to have an actual 3D printer. And so the cost here, the investment required is $0. All you have to invest in the process is a little bit of time. You need to learn the skill first. You need to know how to use all of these different pieces of software to help you create the 3D models in the first place. But eventually, as you progress and as you keep improving your skills, there is a lot of cash to be made. And so guys, here's the bottom line for me. I genuinely think that 3D printing is a skill that can generate full-time income, provided it's done correctly. And there is a lot that goes into it, but we need to start somewhere. And again, selling these digital items is the best way to go about it. And so guys, all that's left for you to do at this point is just picking a niche and then doubling down on that. And moving forward, you can just keep improving. That's it for now, and thanks for watching.